and having exhausted his appetite for adventure for that time, got really interested in making a distinction between what's cultural from what's human, and has been studying a lot of different cultural approaches to this particular query. He has created Kotango, KOTANGO.com, which is a website for ethical non-monogamy. He's the author of Sex at Dawn, a New York Times bestseller, and he comes fresh from a well-received TED Talk. Please join me in welcoming Chris Ryan.
Thanks again for coming.
That thing about being good in bed was off the record.
I have no doubt.
Don't share any secrets with this guy, and it was a lie, as my wife and co-author will tell you. Okay, if you are squeamish about things like penises, semen, and that sort of thing, you've been warned, all right? This is a talk about sex, so. All right, good. Good. Uh-oh, what happened? I was trying to go to the next slide. Already. I hit the arrow key and we went somewhere else. Spacebar. Okay, cool. Cool, thank you. No. Stop the clock. Stop the clock. I'm happy to just scroll down if that makes it easier, but. There we go. All right, so what, arrow key? Up and down arrow key. Okay, cool. So I always like to start these things by saying, I've got bias. We all have bias. The best advice I've ever heard is follow those who seek the truth, flee from those who claim to have found it. All right? So I want to be with those who seek the truth. I don't claim to be revealing any great truths today, just what Casilda and I have interpreted from a decade or two of looking at this information. So this is wildlife as Cannon sees it, and this is wildlife as I see it. No, there it is. Okay, good. Timing is tough, huh? I just tend to notice things that a lot of people don't obsess about quite that much. I mean, even cars, you know. I don't understand this at all, but that's an American thing. You can misinterpret the world through your biases. I'm just going to run through this very quickly for the 15 minutes here. All right, there's a standard narrative of human sexual evolution which posits that men and women are locked in battle. It's built into our DNA that men, since time immemorial, have been essentially leasing women's reproductive systems by providing them with food, protection, shelter, status, all this business. And that's why women are attracted to rich guys and older guys with high status and all that. That's the narrative, right? I'm not sure why this is flashing. That's the narrative. We've all heard it. What Casilda and I say is that's bullshit. It's Flintstone. Yes, a hand for bullshit, please. We say that this is an example of what we call Flintstoneization, which is the tendency to look around at the world you're in and project the institutions and structures of that world into prehistory as a way of explaining, but really justifying the world you're in, right? So that's a very political statement. People are very resistant to the ideas we present in our book, some of them, because they're threatened by the politics, I think, more than the squeamishness about penises and so on. So a fig leaf can hide many things, but a human erection isn't one of them. That's one of the things we say in the book. So what Casilda and I are arguing, why is this flashing? Does anyone know? It's not me. It's like that? Okay, cool. So what Casilda and I argue is that, in fact, human sexuality evolved in small hunter-gatherer groups in which people shared everything. They shared shelter, they shared food, they shared protection, they took care of each other's kids, or the kids. It wasn't even really thought of in terms of each other's kids. These are, by the way, not disputed. These facts are not disputed by anthropologists. This information is all freely available. So the idea that men were somehow sharing meat and protection with one woman in exchange for her fidelity, so the man knew that those were his kids and his genetic package, and this whole thing falls apart once you start looking at anthropological data. and data from explorers, from missionaries, and so on. The world is full of societies that completely refute this notion of the standard narrative. Okay, now, Darwin was very perplexed by the sexual swelling of female primates. The reason he was perplexed by this is that in addition to being a great genius, a wonderful man, Darwin was a world-class Victorian prude. And he couldn't conceive of females being interested in sex for anything other than lining up this provisioning, this providing from a partner, right? So what happens with the female primates, including chimps and bonobos, our two most closely related primate relatives, what happens when the females have these sexual swellings is that they get sexual attention from lots of males, not just one partner. Female chimps and bonobos have sex 1 to 4 times an hour with up to 12 different partners per day. They have sex about 1,000 times per birth, as do humans. Darwin couldn't wrap his head around this. He didn't have a lot of this data at his time, but he couldn't conceive of the idea that female humans had sex for fun, right? Even though there was evidence for what we might call reflection of sexual swelling, even in his own world, as we'll see in a moment. Now, what we're talking about is sperm competition, which is not an event at the Olympics, although in Brazil it probably should be. This refers to when more than one man has sex with a woman during any given menstrual cycle. So sperm is a highly competitive environment. In any case, the average ejaculate of a human has about 200 to 300 million sperm cells. So it's already very competitive given the fact that only one of those cells is even possibly going to fertilize an egg, right? So the question is, are these sperm competing only with each other or with the sperm of other men as well in our species? Now, this is one of the reflections of what I would, I look at this, I see genital swelling, right? Darwin looked at it and he saw courtly ladies. This is the butt bra, a modern version of a reflection of this sexual genital swelling. I found this online. I don't remember how. I came across this page, and I thought, well, this would be great for our book. And I wrote to the company thinking they would say nothing or fuck off. And what they said was, sure, which model do you like? We'll send you a high-res image. So Cassie and I picked her. Okay, briefly, bonobos. If you don't know about bonobos, we are equidistant to bonobos and chimps. I like to think of it as if, like, I've got twin brothers. They're more closely related to each other than they are to me, but after each other, I'm their next closest relative. That's how we're related to bonobos and chimps. Chimps, as you know, are nasty. They do war, they rape, infanticide, all sorts of nastiness. Bonobos, on the other hand, in about 50 years of observation in the wild and in captivity, have not been witnessed to kill another bonobo even once. Rape doesn't exist in bonobos, okay? So it's like one of my twin brothers is a real asshole and the other is this fantastic Gandhi type guy, but every time you read about me, and my genetic heritage in the popular press, you only hear about my asshole brother. You never hear about the Gandhi guy, right? So every time you read something about, the primate origins of human aggression and warfare and all that, and they don't talk about bonobos, please call bullshit. Write a letter to the editor. That's not a legitimate scientific argument. So bonobo social life is female-centered, low-stress, high-sex, sharing-based, no infanticide, and no sexually exclusive pair bonding. So what we're saying is that the anthropological evidence shows that immediate return hunter-gatherer bands, like those in which our ancestors evolved for hundreds of thousands of years, replicate much more or track much more closely with bonobos than they do with chimpanzees. Now, the sexuality of bonobos also has much more commonality with humans, than with chimpanzees. Bonobos and humans are the only animals that have sex face-to-face. The sex is often female-induced, all possible combinations except mother-son, interestingly, even though the mother-son relationship is probably the most important relationship in bonobo society. In fact, the sons placement in the male hierarchy is not based on how badass he is, it's based on how much his mother was loved. In fact, Franz de Waal, the great primatologist who's a great expert on bonobos, says it's not even really accurate to talk about hierarchy because the female hierarchy is not based on dominance, it's based on admiration and respect. Interesting. Okay, very quickly. Do I start this video or does somebody behind the curtain start the video? Dashing, technical assistance. Oh, plug in the sound, good, yeah. I start it? How do I start it? I don't have any mouse or anything. No? Anyone backstage know how to start? This is bonobo porn. It's going to be the highlight of your day if we can get it going. No, it's in the slides. It's embedded in the PowerPoint. But we can skip it if it's. Well, I don't know how to do that. It's in the PowerPoint presentation. Well, if we don't have bonobo porn, will you be disappointed? Maybe we could get people to act it out. Yeah? Okay, we've got some bonobos in the crowd today. No, that's the TED Talk. No, it's in the PowerPoint presentation. Then if we can't do it, we can't do it. That's all right. Okay, I'll tell you a little bit about bonobo sexuality. Bonobos have sex constantly. What's interesting, chimps have sexual swellings about 40% of their cycle. Now, female chimps, humans, and bonobos all have about 30-day menstrual cycle, right? And chimps have their sexual swellings about 40% of that cycle, even though, just like humans and bonobos, there's only about 3 days when they can actually get pregnant. So the sexual swelling is a false advertisement for fertility. With bonobos, you get about 90% of their cycle they have the swelling, and humans, of course, are available for sex 100% of the menstrual cycle. It's extremely unusual for a female of any mammal to have sex when she can't get pregnant. That's a very unusual thing. And so human sexuality obviously is sort of a hyper-turbocharged sexuality. When people say, oh, you have sex like an animal, they're getting it backwards. Animals have sex far less than we do. We're the ones who are embarrassing the animals, I think, something like that. Okay, so we're not going to get the porn, I'm sorry. One of the major things that happens in bonobo sexuality is female-to-female sex. It's called GG rubbing. You can try this at home. Two females back up against each other and sort of do a thing like this, and are very happy. It's called, I have a friend who wrote a book called Bonobo Handshake. It's just a way of sort of saying, how you doing, you know. The males do a thing called penis fencing, you can imagine, on guard. Okay, I've got 4 minutes left. I got to move fast here. So there's 50 minutes of information in this slide. You can see the bonobo, chimp, and human all have external testicles, which in our book we say external testicles is like having a refrigerator in the garage just for beer. Okay? If you're the kind of guy who has a fridge in the garage full of beer, you expect a party to happen at any moment, and you want to be prepared. That's what a scrotum is. I don't have time to get into it in more detail, but believe me. A gorilla, full-size, 350-pound silverback gorilla's penis is the size of your pinky finger, fully erect. Testicles the size of kidney beans in his abdomen. So, gentlemen, power to the human. The human penis is the thickest and arguably the longest of any primate. Give it up. Okay, if that chart's a little dry, this is one of the slides I wasn't allowed to show at TED. They said Italians would be offended. I mean, come on. What Italian doesn't want to hear he has big balls, really? Anyway, this friend of ours it lives in India, and we thought, yeah, I can use it. He wouldn't mind. He'll never know. I did this talk a similar talk in Sydney at the Opera House, and it went online. A bunch of people saw it, and I got an email from this friend saying, hey, what are you doing? Showing my balls around the world. Okay, the data that we present in our book goes far beyond anatomy, as much fun as that is. We talk a lot about anthropology. Just two quick examples. These are the Mosuo people of southwestern China, in which all men and women are completely sexually autonomous. There's no shame associated with sexuality. A woman can sleep with 100 different guys if she wants, it doesn't matter. When she's pregnant, the child is cared for by her, her sisters, and her brothers. Biological fatherhood is a non-issue. On the other side of the world, we have the people in the Amazon, 20, 25 different societies with no contact among them, in which fatherhood is thought to be something that can be shared. They think that the fetus is literally made of accumulated semen. So a woman who wants to have a child who's funny and smart and strong will make sure she has a lot of sex with the funny guy, the smart guy, and the strong guy to get the essence of each of those guys into her baby. And then when the baby's born, all three of these guys will come forward and say, yeah, we're the fathers, right? So it's a team endeavor. Beautiful. It's called partible paternity by anthropologists. Now, I'm not saying this necessarily. I'm not arguing that we should all, go to a swingers club after the BIL conference. If you want to, that's fine. But what I'm saying is that our ancestors were sexual omnivores, just as much as they were dietary omnivores. And so to argue that they were omnivores is not an indictment of vegetarianism, right? Vegetarianism is ethical and wonderful and healthy. Monogamy can be too. But just because you've decided to be a vegetarian doesn't mean bacon suddenly stops smelling good, right? So that's sort of what we're saying about sex. Now, lastly, what I'm saying is that because as we understand that sex is really about forming and maintaining complex social bonds and networks, it's not about anchoring a nuclear family. It's not about some weird exchange of goods and services for sex between men and women. Our hope is that we'll find greater respect for unconventional relationship models like same-sex marriages or polyamorous unions or whatever, that we will understand that we all have a closet we have to come out of, whether we're straight or gay or whatever we are. And when we come out of that closet, we'll recognize that our conflict is not with each other, but with an outdated Victorian understanding of human sexuality, that mixes, that conflates desire with property rights. Okay, that's our main message, and now we'll go to questions. Whew, that was a sprint. Thank you. Thank you. So what do we have, 5 minutes for questions? 2 minutes for questions. Yes, sir. Whose? Oh, Rousseau. How do I feel about Rousseau? Normally, when I have a little more time, I have a disclaimer saying our ancestors were not noble savages. The concept that Rousseau actually didn't coin the phrase, but he's blamed for it. The point is, all this sharing in hunter-gatherer societies is simply the best way to mitigate risk in that ecological context. I go hunting, you go hunting, we're not both going to get something every day. And when there's no refrigeration anyway, how are you going to save meat, right? So it simply makes more sense to share the food, to share things, because we're all in it together, we take care of each other, we all survive. It's no more noble than paying your taxes or your insurance bills, right? We've just institutionalized it in a different way. Remember also that these people are all nomadic. They're walking about 10 kilometers a day on average. So you don't want to schlep around your own cooking pot, your own this, your own that. It makes much more sense to just share stuff. So there's no nobility implied in this. It's just efficient and smart. Any other questions? I think Hobbes was completely full of shit, by the way. Nasty, brutish, short. We really tear that apart in Sex at Dawn directly. Anyone else? Yes. It's called Sex at Dawn. The hard copy, let's see, they changed the subtitle. The hard copy was The Prehistoric Origins of Human Sexuality. The paperback was How We Mate, Why We Stray, and What It Means for Modern Relationships. They thought that would appeal more to women. Yes? That's the Mosuo, M-O-S-U-O, also known as the Na, N-A. And they live around Lugu Lake, L-U-G-U Lake. It's a very interesting society. They have no words for husband, wife. They refer to each other as friend. They also have no words for rape or murder in their language. And it's the last pictographic language on earth that's still alive, still being used. Very interesting. There's a beautiful memoir written by a woman who grew up in the society called Leaving Mother Lake. And then she went into Beijing and became a very famous singer and ended up marrying a Norwegian diplomat and now lives in San Francisco, I think. Very beautiful insight into that society. Okay, I think we're out of time. Thank you very much.